Well, hi there. So in this video, we're going to do some practice with artificial monopoly. So let's get started. Okay, so I know that actually I realized after I finished recording the last video that we didn't really talk about natural monopoly, and that's because we're going to learn it in the next lecture notes. So surprise, this is a artificial monopoly. If it has this kind of cost structures, marginal cost and ATC that look like this, if ATC is doing one of those and marginal cost is doing one of those, you have a artificial monopoly, right? And so we can tell because of the cost structures. Let's go ahead and label using these labels. Let's identify some of these points. Profit maximizing point is where MR equals MC. So that's going to occur here, A over to P2. So our answer is P2. We do need to say P2 and not A because A is not a price. It's just a point on the demand curve. P2 is a price. Profit maximizing quantity. Well, we go down from point A and we find Q1. Technically, we're starting at point E because that's where MR equals MC, and we're coming down to Q1. So here, consumer surplus, the area above the price that's paid up to the demand curve. So above P2 over to A up to P1. So P2, A, P1. And I'm sorry that my pen seems to be dying on me. That's not good. Total revenue. Well, that's the price times the quantity. And so we could say P2 times Q1. It's also useful to say P2A Q1 0. P2A Q1 0. But you could certainly have just said P2 times Q1. Total cost. That's the area below the ATC. So it's P5 over to D to Q1. So it's kind of like this little area down here. And again, there's two ways we could say that. You could say P5, which is the average cost, times Q1, right? So the average total cost would be here at P5 times Q1. Or we can say P5, and then what is that point? D, Q1, 0. So D is kind of the corner point that's right here, how we knew what the cost was. Profit is P2A, D, P5. So it's just that difference. P2A, P5, and what did we say? D. And the price is in the elastic range of demand. Now here's where we're getting interesting, right? The thing about it, well, remember way back in Unit 2, we learned about elasticity of demand. We actually talked about how when the elasticity of demand is in the first part of the demand curve, it's elastic, and the bottom part's inelastic, and then there's a point where it crosses over. Now that point, the midpoint of the demand curve, is actually where MR hits 0. And so the elastic prices would be anywhere from, what do we got, P1 to P3. Yep, P1 to P3. And it does not actually include P3. P3 is actually the unit elastic point. So revenue maximizing quantity, well, that's just going to be where the MR is equal to 0, which is Q2. So these are from Unit 2. And you can see that they kind of showed back up in a weird spot for us. Let's take a look at number 2. Due to a new technology, Brunel enjoys monopoly power. They don't price discriminate. We're going to come back and talk later about what that part means. And assume that they are earning short-run profits, draw a graph, and label all their good stuff. So if they're earning a profit, that means that it's going to look something like the graph that's right above it, actually. And I mean, actually, it should look exactly like the one that's right above it. So we have demand, and we have marginal revenue. We're going to draw an upward sloping marginal cost curve, and we can use that to determine the quantity that this firm is producing, which we are going to label Q star because it tells us to do that. And we're going to label P star from the demand curve. P star tells us that. And now we do need to put an ATC in. So I'm going to put mine here, hit that minimum at marginal cost, and come back out. And as a result, we're going to start from the price and go down to that ATC, just like we did up here when we went from A to D. Here we're going to go down to that ATC and then over, right? And so I am kind of trying to make sure that I'm getting that right where it needs to be. It's comparing the ATC to the price, and I've shaded that area. If Brunel wants to maximize its revenues instead of profits, using the graph from part B, show the following revenue maximizing output, QR. That's going to be where MR is equal to 0, QR, and the revenue maximizing price that corresponds to that. Oh man, the way I just drew that, it would intercept wherever the demand curve is. And so I'm going to kind of come back up onto the demand curve and put a little dash marked over and say PR right here. Or another way that you can do this, if you got like a really messy graph, like the way that I do, right? You would say PR would come from like that one little point right there where this one is corresponding. That is a really hard one for them to ask us to do. Now, explain why the demand curve lies above the marginal revenue curve. So the price, just to finish my thought here, P sub R is occurring from the demand curve wherever QR is. And I know that that was really messy the way I did it. For this one, it would be a lot cleaner because it would actually be up here because of the way that I've drawn this. And so you could actually see point B would be where that would be. So you'd come up from the quantity, go over to point B, and then say P3. That would be what that price is. Why the demand curve lies above the marginal revenue curve for Brunel? It's because they are a single price monopolist. So as they increase quantity, they lower the price, which lowers revenue from prior units. So what I'm kind of saying when I'm saying that because they're a single price monopolist, that means that as they go to sell an additional quantity, they have to lower the price, which decreases the revenue from prior units. And that's what's actually causing that marginal revenue to be less than the demand curve. Given your answer in part B, are they experiencing the allocative efficient level of output where marginal cost equals demand and without deadweight loss? Based on how I've drawn this picture, absolutely not, right? Remember, we have allocative efficiency would be where marginal cost equals demand, and we are not producing there. And so we can say no, because, and we do need a reason why, we'd say because profit max is at MR equals MC at a smaller quantity. And then last but not least, explain what will happen to Brunel's demand curve if other firms adopt the same technology. So if other firms jump in, right, what's that going to do to this firm? It's going to shrink their market. It's going to actually cause their demand to decrease because other people would buy it from somebody else. So we would say demand would decrease. It doesn't actually, it does say explain. Demand decrease because some customers, we're just going to say go to the new firms. So it's not like there's anything necessarily wrong with Brunel. It's just that some of these customers are going to go to the new firms. So Brunel would actually see less demand for their product. So hopefully this helped you understanding monopoly a little bit more. I'll see you next time.